Courageous love now. Courageous love now. Courageous love now. Welcome back, welcome back. Lara Helena here, Courageous Lara on Courageous Love Now podcast. It's so nice to welcome you back to another episode of Courageous Love Now. And I do admit it has been some months. My last release was back in August, end of August, I believe it was, with my part 2 of 3 of my ayahuasca journey. So today, naturally, I'm finally going to share with you part 3 of 3 of my ayahuasca journey. We are light and breaking through the limiting beliefs, breaking through the walls of our limiting beliefs. And that was very much a huge part of my part 3 or night 3 of my ayahuasca experience of last May, year 2021. So, in diving back in, for those of you who are jumping in here and have listened to part 1 and part 2, then you just sit tight and get ready for the ride. And those of you who haven't heard part 1 or 2, you might want to go back and listen to that simply just to follow the process of my journey and the investigation that I have done there since. And if you don't want to, no problem. Listen to it in any order that you feel. And let's get started with this episode of We Are Light, Break Through the Walls of Limiting Beliefs, my ayahuasca journey, part 3 of 3. So, in getting started with this continuation, I finished off the last episode with the morning after my second night. And I dove into my third experience of Kambo, which I expressed in the first 2 episodes what Kambo is. And if you haven't heard of it, it is a really powerful way to clear out your immune system and your lymph system with a very powerful neurotoxin from the back of an Amazonian frog. I'll let you look into that further on your own or listen to one of the last 2 episodes where I go into more detail on it. So I did my third experience with it. My first 2 having been very specifically located in different areas of my body. I had the first day, it hit very strong in my heart. The second day it was up in my chest and throat, and the third day it was down in my first chakra, in the my root. And I had to excavate pretty quickly after going through it. It was a lot of heat, a lot of sweating, not a lot of emotion and visuals like I'd had the first 2 days. But right away, I just had a very powerful feeling that I needed to excavate my body. And as I had the night prior, my second night of ayahuasca, a very strong, how would you say, internal gut response to the journey and to a lot of emotions and anger. I could feel that now that this excavation was about to occur, it was a big release of everything I had kind of processed the night before. So I only did 2 doses instead of 3, which I had, it's the little burn marks on your arm. So I dove in and did the 2, and right away, within about 10 minutes, I had to excavate and head to the bathroom. So I did that, and it was a little more low-key. I laid down and rest and had some reflections about everything I had lived the night before and the process and realizations that I had come upon. And then I continued back to my room to rest before the breakfast period and then the morning integration. And I took some time to write and reflect a little bit that morning. Made it back to the integration process, and I knew that there was a lot that had gone on inside me and that I really wanted to share something about it, but I was just kind of sitting back and being patient. We were informed that morning, being that it was the last day, that we would be doing offered San Pedro, and anyone who would like to try it could try it. And they would prepare the San Pedro while we were starting the integration. And at some point, we would pause and we would all take the San Pedro, which is kind of like a green powder mixed with water. So kind of like almost looks like a green smoothie. And it's from a cactus in the southwestern part of in Mexico and southwestern part of America and South America. So we proceeded with the integration, and again, the integration is where everyone who wishes gets to share their process of the evening the night before. Obviously, we were a big group, so not everyone gets a chance to share. And two women had decided to share, and these were two women that I actually had really nice connections with, and one of them had been my roommate, and the other one was another woman that I'd had some really nice conversations with. And the beautiful thing about doing these kind of ceremonies is that you start to realize how similar we all are, that everyone's share over the course of the days was a part of your experience, that each one of us is living an experience of healing traumas, wounds from childhood, mostly wounds from childhood, limiting beliefs, PTSD, some kind of heartbreak or heartache that has happened in our life. And most of what I listened to in the feedback from people were these types of healings and realizations of what happened, why it happened, and like your ayahuasca is giving you an opportunity to see another perspective so that you can heal your own wound and no longer be a victim, and empower yourself to step outside and hold more love and compassion for all the parties in the experience that you had, as you are able to then hold that experience, that wisdom, and that compassion for the people that are now sitting among you in the room having their own experience. So I listened to both of these women share their process, and it was as if they were speaking for me. Different context, of course, but their wounds, their pain, their sorrow, their frustration, and their inability to be their full, authentic self was what came through for me in very, very different stories. But those were the core essence that I got from both of their shares. And it was as though it was exactly what I needed in order to go deeper into my own process while listening to them. So after the second share, our facilitator decided to do a pause, and ironically enough, I was just getting the guts up to raise my hand to want to share. And she said, "Oh, well, we've kind of run out of time. We're going to go into the San Pedro process, and we'll see if we have any time afterwards." So I was a little frustrated because I was, building up in my own process of what I had just listened to with these two women, and really felt like I was about to make a big breakthrough in my own realizations. So we stopped, and 2 or 3 glasses at a time went around, and everyone started to drink their San Pedro, and they said it would take about 2 hours before it would fully kick in, and that we would break and have lunch, and that would be the moment that would really help it, because food is helping to initiate or to activate the San Pedro. So we did that. And by the way, the San Pedro for me personally was not bad at all. Everyone was kind of gagging and saying how horrible it was. When I saw the green drink, I thought, oh, I drink crazy green drinks all the time. It can't be that bad. And sure enough, I drank it and thought, oh, this isn't bad at all. It was bitter, a little tangy, a little grainy, thick green drink. So that was a relief. So we drank that. And then after the fact, the facilitator then kind of did some closing conversations and said, well, we actually have time to do one more share if there's anyone who would like to. So I raised my hand, like literally jumped out of me right away to share. And she had simply been, prior to the break, had closed the last conversation with the last girl that shared around motherhood. And it was a very powerful conversation because she has 2 children of her own. And the girl that was sharing was also sharing about her own mother and the experience she went through with abuse and traumas, and also now having her own child. And one of the things that triggered to me, that opened up for me, was my fear of not having been a mother, a biological mother to a child, not having had my own child. And for a number of years, I decided pretty clearly in my mid-20s that I didn't want to have children, that I wanted to dedicate myself to humanity, that I wanted to be of service. Went through many different phases of what that looked like. And then sometime in my mid-30s, I had a boyfriend that I then decided I wanted to have a baby with. We never went forward with the really making that happen, as we were not in the living situation that either of us wanted to. And then we ended up breaking up. And since then, I kind of closed that chapter and decided, no, it wasn't something for me. So while I was listening to these 2 women speak about their experiences with their mother, about their own motherhood, and my own process of my own mother that I was going through, I also came upon this great fear inside me that I was now going to miss this chapter of my life, that I was going to miss this opportunity of being a biological mother, of birthing, of going through the ritual of what that potentially is as a woman. And I felt immediately, as I was listening to the conversation between them, I felt a kind of inferiority. And I started to reflect on the way in which I felt around mothers, my own mother, mothers who are friends of mine, friends of mine who are mothers, like young mothers or older mothers or grandmothers, but mothers. And there was this type of intimidation that I felt, a type of, I've missed something. I missed like a chapter of the book of being a woman because I didn't do this. And I had such a wave of insecurity and of lack of worth come up. And that tied into a lot of my own realizations of the day before and over the course of months before, but specifically the night before in my ayahuasca journey, around the recognition of my mother's insecurities and fear as a woman, and bringing me into the world when she was living in so much fear around the abuse of my father at the time, around her own insecurities as a woman and a young mother in another land with a foreign husband and an abusive husband and an alcoholic husband and such. And I was really taking in the remembrance of how I came into this world, what were the conditions in which I was held in my mother's womb for 7 months because I was a premature baby. And that realization of the conditions in which I was created helped me to see a broader, multidimensional aspect of what it was that had launched my own limiting beliefs around fear, around worth, around being sorry to just be taking up space because I didn't really deserve to be here, so to speak. Now, all of this, of course, is over the course of many years, of many experiences, and I went through, obviously, phases of feeling super empowered and righteous and full of belief and dogma and full of spirituality and love and hope and all of this rainbow of other dynamics of my personality and my experience in life. But certainly, one of the main reasons that I was there for the weekend was to break through the things that were holding me back. That net that I felt like my dolphin fin was stuck in, and I wanted to swim out into the great blue ocean. And here I was feeling these, like, it was almost as though it was like infinity blasting itself through me in how fast the connections were piecing themselves together by listening to these other two women and having my own realizations. And then, of course, the third woman being the facilitator, sharing her process. So here we are now, jumping forward after everyone had taken their San Pedro, and she opens up and invites the last person to share. And I raise my hand and go forth in trying to articulate what was feeling like an absolute firework display eruption of realization and process going on inside me. And not only did I have the realization of where the limiting beliefs and the patterning that I took on energetically from my mother, where that was stored in my physical body, but I also felt my father too. And that was also aspects of what was shared in the morning from the two of the women. And I got the anger and the anger and the insecurity of my father, and how that was trapped in my liver, how that was trapped in my body, and how I had avoided most of my life from allowing myself to be angry in any moment, allowing myself to have any kind of volatile reaction, because I had a visceral fear of anger. And that visceral fear came from my mother being afraid of my father's anger. So I picked that up literally in the womb while being under construction, so to speak, and came out into the world in that environment. And the first 2 years or 2.5 years I was alive was living in a very unhealthy environment. Now, you think that an infant is not feeling, but the intelligence of a newborn is so high and so sensitive that they're picking up every energetic blast that's around them, no matter what it is, whether it's television or human or the radio, any kind of energy and frequency that newborn is picking up, and positive or negative. So, in understanding in that moment, as I sat there and started to have this like download of where all of these limiting beliefs were held and remembered in my body, as though they were like interlocked in the cells of organs and energy systems within my chakras, within my physical energy body, within my muscle structure, everything, because everything affects everything. So as I took on these beliefs and they became the construct of who I was growing up in, an environment that was unhealthy. It was bullying and alcoholism and drug use and adultery and whatnot, all of it. And I can sit here and tell you all about the amazing experiences I had as a child, but I also had a really dysfunctional childhood. So in both households that I lived in. So with that being said, I started to share. And as I started to open up and try to share, I started sweating like profusely, like under my arms completely. My whole body was trembling as I was trying to get the words out fast enough, because there was so much that was being realized in that moment. It was literally like no time, no space. It was like a multi-dimensional experience of sharing my realizations. And as I brought it through, the facilitator then asked me, well, you are in a safe space right now. It's okay to express your anger. You don't have to be afraid of your anger. You don't have to be afraid of losing control, because that's all another part. So there was the fear aspect, there was the anger aspect, but there was the control aspect, the perfectionism in me to be like, no, I have to be this otherwise I can't be loved. I have to be this, otherwise I won't be worthy. I have to be this, otherwise I won't be enough. So this absolute and constant control of my behavior and my every move and my every thought, being a dancer, being so connected to my physicality, being so connected to my consciousness, but at the same time having this disability of being codependent, of listening to the limiting beliefs in me and letting that direct me, even though I had a grand consciousness of being aware of humanity and all the things that I was conscious of. So here I have this opportunity, and she's saying to me, it's okay. You can let go and lose control. You are in a safe environment and you can be as angry as you want. What are you waiting for? Let it go. Do it. Get angry. And I just looked at her and I thought to myself, oh, and she's like, don't worry, there's cushions and pillows and mattresses and people around that are here to support you. So I started in this like convulsing energy, starting to release what was coming through, like in a frenetic way. And she said, is that all you got? As I started. And then it started more and more. And I was on my hands and knees and slamming and throwing and punching and until I literally just fell into a puddle of screaming, crying catharsis. It was just a mess. And I recall at that moment, I remember coming onto my back and she was directing everyone to come around me, and they all picked me up by my limbs, my hands and my feet, and they started to swing me. There was probably about 8 or 10 people, I don't know, at least 2 on each limb and a couple around my head, and started to slowly sway me. And she was explaining, there is no past, there is no future, there is only the now. And everything that you are living, everything that you are experiencing is here in the now. And it is in the past, and it is in the future. But it's in the now moment that you're changing it. And at that moment, I was having a dialogue with my mother. She started stroking my hair. And when I said, oh, I loved when my mother used to stroke my hair. And she said, well, your mother is stroking your hair. She's here right now stroking your hair. And so I started to talk to my mother. And some moments later, after crying and moving through some very deep and powerful emotions, I could feel a male's hand holding my hand. And I said, you know what? All I ever wanted was for my dad to take my hand and say, I got you. I'll protect you. And the gentleman who was holding my hand, who at that point I hadn't even opened my eyes, said, I've got you. There is no past. Your father is here right now. I've got you and I'm protecting you. And this journey of going through the healing process of forgiving my parents for being imperfect was allowing me to forgive myself for being imperfect, and vice versa. That I'm doing the best that I can, and I only learned certain behaviors because that's what was shown to me. And they only learned those behaviors because that's what was shown to them. And so their imperfections were allowing me finally to embrace that I was not perfect. And also to recognize that they were just limiting beliefs that I was letting get in my way. And they weren't my limiting beliefs. They're limiting beliefs that I picked up through my birth into this world that I took on as an empath and someone who was here to literally feel like I wanted to take the suffering of humanity away because I was here to love. That was all I have ever followed as the truth in my heart was, I am just here to love. I can love my way out of anything. Of course, we know that that's not exactly how it works. Because that can put you in some codependent situations, which I have been. So here I was after complete release, communication with my parents, communication with myself, with my inner child, with my higher self. And I finally open my eyes and I look up and I see the faces of all these beautiful people who just lived this experience with me, crying, wiping their tears, someone giving me Reiki, people stroking my hair, just so much love and fraternity and care. And in the same way that I felt myself through the testimonies of these other women earlier, I felt the way that everyone looked at me, that they too had gone through their own process of healing while observing and being part of my own catharsis. So there I was, feeling like I had completely come undone, with absolutely no shame, no guilt, no embarrassment around feeling like I looked like a crazy woman or was a crazy woman. And I slowly pieced myself up and sat up, and I got some hugs from a few people. And I looked down, and I was wearing at the time a big giant quartz crystal that had small stones of all the colors of the chakras. And it was missing the yellow stone. And I looked up, and something rolled. I was leaning on my elbow on the mattress, and something rolled into my arm. And it just happened to be the orange stone, which was the second chakra. And I laughed, and the guy who had been doing Reiki over my second chakra, I looked at him and I said, "Oh my gosh, I blew out my second chakra." And I started laughing, and I showed him the crystal that had like the stone was like had literally blown out of it during the journey. And the irony was that this stone and this necklace was my father's. So I thought it was a beautiful coincidence and synchronicity that it happened to show me how deep I went down my own rabbit hole in order to purge some of the layers of limiting beliefs that were there, as well as my father's limiting beliefs, because he certainly had a lot of them, and insecurities and paranoias, etc. So I pieced myself back together, and slowly we all like kind of wrapped things up, and we broke to go to lunch. By the time I finally made it back upstairs into the dining area, the wonderful cook that had been preparing food over the course of the days had made this huge pasta dish and carbohydrate galore with lots of fruit and pasta and whatnot. And music was playing, and people were already starting to dance. And I realized very quickly, I thought, oh, okay, we are diving into the San Pedro, because I had heard, and they had expressed that it was kind of the happy experience. You're going to feel a lot of love and a lot of fraternity, and want to just connect with everyone. It's the connection medicine, so to speak. And so I ate a bit of food, and then I was looking out. It was the first day that it had been sunny, and in the 3 days I had been there, and they had a beautiful glass encased sun deck. And there was one person outside on a giant, enormous U-shaped couch. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go out and lie in the sun. So like a big lion, courageous lion, I went out and laid in the sun and just took in some beautiful energy. And I started to meditate and started to do some sounding vibration sounds. And next thing you know, I started having visuals happen and messages coming through. And I thought, okay, if this is San Pedro, then woo, this is powerful. Had started a conversation with a young man that was outside, and slowly but surely, I ended up going back inside and having some really powerful conversations. Next thing you know, everyone was going into the backyard. They had a big fire pit, and they had the hot tub going. It was outdoor wood burning fire pit and wood burning hot tub. And so yeah, everyone wrapped up lunch. Everyone was dancing, and like just it was amazing, beautiful energy. And next thing you know, we were all 8 or 10 people in this ginormous outdoor hot tub, and right next to it was a cold pool. So we were dipping in between and laughing and jokes. And so this cathartic journey that I went through, and this breakthrough that I went through, led right into this beautiful wave of the San Pedro. And it was just really electric and powerful to feel kind of the walls literally breaking down, and total freedom and fraternity and unity and serenity and love between all of us. And that mirror reflection of how we are all a piece of the other's experience. We are all another shade of the color of the rainbow. We are another, just hue of the rainbow of life. And that experience, to feel that, I had not felt that in a long time. And I had felt that at different meditation seminars over the course of many years. But to really feel as though the work had been done that I had been working on for months, around remembering who I am and why am I here, and breaking through the walls of these belief systems of my past and my victimhood to the experiences that I did have, and those that I wanted to allow to set me free, and those that were still remaining like shackles and a ball and chain around my ankle. And at one point, I remember getting out of the hot tub and I just looked out at the forest and I ran through the forest with my arms open. I'm free! And yeah, it was a very liberating day. And slowly but surely, we went back inside. Everyone got a bit cozy, and then we met back out at the fire pit a few hours later, around 6-7 p.m. And that was when we were going to do our first ceremonial drinking of the ayahuasca, and then dive into the second dose back in the house and for our final night. And we ended up doing kind of like a music and drum circle around the fire, and everyone was singing, and that in itself was just therapy. And one of the gentlemen that was actually had brought a bunch of the instruments works with intercity kids, doing music and nature therapy with them. And so he shared a lot around his journey with that, and it was just so beautiful and powerful to hear how he's helping in the world to help kids and help adults and kids, and to pass their own traumas. And these are kids that have come out of like refugees from other countries and whatnot. So I would say real traumas, not just childhood wounding from bad parents, but literally traumas of coming out of war and really horrific situations. So that in itself was very humbling. And yes, then playing drums and percussion instruments and singing, and all uniting around this fire pit, and then doing our dose of ayahuasca, and then slowly everyone wrapping up and going inside. And I remember I was one of the last ones to arrive in the room, the ceremony room, after we came back, and there was one spot left, which was mine, and I laid down, and they started the ceremony. And this last evening was such a different experience. I mean, each night was so profoundly different because I was changing, and the medicine and the wisdom of the medicine was working so strongly through me. And this evening I felt like an instrument. I felt like an instrument of light and sound and movement. Somewhat like a dancer singer, right? I've always been connected to dance and to vocalization and to singing, to communicating, to expressing myself. And surely the first night with my party dance experience, and the second night of my moaning and getting sound out, I knew that that was a way in which Aya was helping me to get clear through sound and movement. And this was very different on the third night. I felt very still inside. I was able to sit and just meditate and be for a very long time. And the impulses that came through with movement and sound came from such a different place inside me. It came through the stillness. It came as an inspiration by the music that was playing in the room. And not like a dance move, but very abstract and primal sounds that were coming through. And that in itself was very liberating because, as I said, from the first night when I realized, okay, am I like being too much in control because I'm a dancer and I know my body and I know, how to move my body in an entertaining way. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like I was there to please or to show or to be anything other than a instrument of expression, an instrument to the infinite, and allowing that to move me, allowing the infinite to move me. So the evening went on, and yeah, I had some deeply profound experiences with the music that night and with the stillness and the connection with everything around me. And I started to have a very powerful connection with all of the light in the room. And there was not a lot of light, but somewhat like the Bufo experience of the day before, which I shared in my second episode of my ayahuasca journey. The way in which my communication and my awareness of electricity, of candlelight, of the moonlight, of anything that was light coming from the people that were in the room, because of course they are like electricity. And that dance and that communication of the power of light, and then again the power of sound, and then the power of movement, and the power of stillness. So those four elements of creation were so prominent and so vastly accessible to my intuition and to simply being me. And I remember at one point I finally I don't know what time it was, everything started to kind of wind down, and I thought, I think I'm good here. I think I'm ready to go and get some sleep. And so I turned to the room and told them I loved them and departed. And I did go through some really moments of like laughter. There were some beautiful moments of laughter being triggered in the room, which was very unifying. And yeah, it was such a light, as in very airy fairy light, and light as in bright evening. And I wrapped my things together and very lightly floated myself off to my upstairs. I stopped in the kitchen and ran into a couple people, and we started to talk a little bit about our evening and how we were feeling, and headed off to bed. And it was the closure of that night of just feeling as though something deeply, profoundly, and multidimensionally shifted. That I had an experience that I would never be the same from. And that experience of awakening myself to truly recognizing where my limiting beliefs were living in my body, not as though it was just a neuronal connection and a habitual way of thinking in my subconscious mind, but that connection between where it was lying dormant in my physiological body and how that woke up, and I was able to recognize its location and then eject it out of my subconscious mind. That was powerful. And that came through the light and the sharing of everyone in the experience, the sharing of the fact that we are one. We are one body and entity called Source, God. We are one of 8 billion little spheres of light that are illuminating this planet with consciousness. And we can't do it alone. We're not here to do it alone. We're here to do it together. And that feeling of fraternity and wanting to help others and wanting to be a part of the growth and the development and the awakening of consciousness of other human beings was so lit up in me. And I've had that throughout my life in numerous different situations, at yoga retreats or the religious organization that I was a part of, and in different, settings than which I could feel that I was having an influence on the whole by sharing my own perspective of consciousness, but also in the collective and the collaboration between the collective in that elevation of consciousness. And if I think about it now, I mean, it's been 8 months since my experience. And it's been 4 or 5 months since I shared my last part of the experience. And so much in the last 8 months has shifted. I've actually done another ayahuasca experience, which I won't get into now. But the biggest thing that has come through for me in this last 8 months, and the journeys that I continued with afterwards, I went on a 3-week road trip by myself across 10 states in America, camping. I really wanted some time to just connect with nature. I've been back and forth to Denmark, I think 4 times since then. I'm in Denmark now in my studio. And I've been in Los Angeles, and as I said, all in other states. I've visited my father in Slovenia. And yeah, and I've been back to Sweden again for the ayahuasca retreat, for another ayahuasca retreat. But all that being said, what has this journey given me the most? What has this instigated in my path, in my soul path, in my path towards more light and love and more courageous love now? It has given me the reminder of how unique and precious we all are, and that without each other, we're nothing. That we are here for the purpose of connecting with others. We are here to connect from heart to heart, from light to light, from love to love. Because that force is something I heard just recently, that the earth in the chakra system of our galaxy is the heart chakra. Our earth, and why it's so fundamentally important for this transition of the heart opening experience of humanity and the awakening of humanity to the broader consciousness of our galactic family, of our broader consciousness, of our connection between each other here on the planet. Because I talk about galactic family and I already lose people because they're like, oh, what? I don't even, like, that's not even something they're open to. Some people, others not. But the idea that we are all connected, every gender, every race, religion, country, creed, doesn't matter. Take all of those boundaries and those separations away from us. And we are like little children who have experienced pain, grief, suffering, love, fantasy, imagination. And all we want to do is heal. We want to feel good. Every human being's right on this planet is to feel free, to feel good, to feel loved, to feel seen, to be understood. And the only way that we can get to that is through our own work. Be the change that you want to see in the world, as Gandhi said. And that resonates so much in me as I've gone through the last 8 months, like mining through a dark coal mine looking for that little diamond inside, like knowing that in the rough there is something there that is trying to get my attention, and I'm going to keep digging until I find it. And then once I found it, it's like a little like a relay race. It's like, or a treasure hunt. It's like I found one treasure, but that treasure is leading me to the next treasure. So I then go on to the next treasure. And what is that hunt going to show me? What is that going to reveal to me in my own self-development, in the development of my relationships, in the development of my forgiveness for things that have happened within my family, for the development of me as a mother to my bonus son, for the development of me as partner to my man, to the development of me as a friend, to the development of me as a sister, to all the caps in which I wear. But the most important one of that is to that development of my personal experience and my awareness of why I am here and what am I here to do. And that has gotten so clear over the last 8 months because more and more I am in love with humanity. I am in love with healing, with helping others find their path towards more consciousness, more light, and more love. And that truly is the impetus that came through the birth of Courageous Love Now. What was Courageous Love Now birthed out of? Well, it was birthed out of a lot of turmoil. And in the moments of turmoil of my life, in the chaos that I lived as a child, in the abuse and the addiction and all of this, I knew that I was here to love, that my purpose was here on this planet, on Earth. I came here to love. Now, that can look different in many ways. It's not just about loving in the relationship sense or loving in the family sense. Love means use your consciousness. Use that elevation of consciousness. Continue to expand your consciousness. Continue to expand your capacity to love yourself, to love your family, to love your friends, to love your loved ones, but then to love your enemy, to love that which makes you uncomfortable, to love that which makes you put boundaries up, to understand through compassion, through forgiveness, how to love the other, because it's only through those aspects that we truly can heal. It's only through forgiving ourselves for our imperfections, forgiving ourselves for those limiting beliefs that hold us back, and then forgiving those that seeded them inside of us. There's no one to blame. I can sit here and blame all my life, but then I'm remaining a victim to my circumstances of the story of my life. And then I'm constantly putting the responsibility on someone else, and somebody else then has control over me. But isn't that what this time in history is about? Isn't that what it is about right now? To claim our sovereignty, to take full responsibility for my body, my choice, my consciousness, my choice, my heart, my choice. I get to choose how I want to love, who I want to love. I get to choose what I want to do with my body, where I want to live, what I want to think about, what I want to speak about. And is what I think about and what I speak about helping to elevate humanity? Is it helping to elevate my own consciousness? Is it helping to elevate others in the room? And if you're around people in situations that you have to lower your consciousness in order to be in that room, then you need to question, is this the room that I really want to be in? Is this a room that elevates me? Or am I constantly the one that's struggling to help elevate others? And sometimes we feel in all situations, in our work environment, our relationships, in our family, that we're the one that's constantly like, come on, guys, come on, let's change the subject. Let's move on to something more positive and elevating and opening. Let's come back to love. Maybe there's too much judgment. Maybe there's too much fear. Maybe there's too much pain. And whatever and however that comes out is going to affect you. Trust me, it's been my wonderful roller coaster of life to put myself in these challenging situations and then say, okay, I choose to be here or I choose to go. That's my choice. At the end of the day, we all have a choice. And I think if this journey of my ayahuasca experience of expanding my mind in places that showed me the darkness of myself, showed me the darkness and the potential of others and humanity, but it showed me the vulnerability and how fragile and precious we all are and how we are all wounded. And in those wounds is where the darkness collects. It's like the black hole. It just keeps pulling more and more of the energy towards it that's like it. So again, consciousness is closing the black hole. Consciousness is saying, I choose love. I choose to elevate. I choose not to go down that rabbit hole because I know the future that I want to live in. I know the future that I want the world to be in and to experience. And I want to share that future with others. One that is full of courage and love and living in the present moment. Courageous love now. It's, as I said, being that it's been 8 months since I have been on this journey and having had so many moments thinking that I wanted to come and get behind the microphone to share something. I was like, no, I can't share another podcast until I finish this 3-part series. So I'm very excited that I've gotten to share this with you today. And of course, the accumulation of my own reflections since the experience has deepened my faith. It has deepened my consciousness and my verb in why I'm here, what I have to do, and my part, my small little part, my small little voice that's here on the YouTube platform or Instagram platform or any of the other podcast platforms that my podcast makes it out to. I get to share my little voice, and each one of you has that opportunity to share your voice because not one of us is too small to have a voice, to say and to speak and to share our truth. And I believe it's the one thing that has been like the cut in my Achilles heel is the belief that I was not good enough, big enough, great enough, perfect enough, pretty enough to be something that someone else would want to listen to look at, to be inspired by. And in those moments that I taught yoga or that I'm working one-on-one with a client or that I'm giving a talk, I just lose myself and I don't think about like how many people I want to inspire. I go into it with this feeling like I have a responsibility to speak up. I have a responsibility to this person who's in front of me that's asking me for guidance. And I just show up and I forget myself. And in those moments where you forget yourself is the best thing because then you're not thinking about how you're not being of service to other people. You're just simply being of service. So the more that I put myself at the service of this podcast, of my clients, of any other video or teaching or online class that I may do, the more that I am living my potential, the more that we are all stepping into the shoes that are helping to brighten this world towards more light, towards more love, towards more truth. And that is my biggest wish. As an actor, a dancer, a singer, a musician, a songwriter, a writer, a voiceover actor, a podcaster, a holistic health mentor, a certified personal trainer, all the hats that I have worn and that I wear and that I juggle helps me to see that there's more and more and more avenues in which I can share my light in order to step into the dream that I have always carried. Why is it that I wanted to be a famous actor? Because I wanted to be able to transmit an emotion on screen and affect people that are watching like I was affected by amazing actors that I witnessed. I was like, I want to make someone feel the way that person just made me feel. I want to have that ability to affect a room, to affect an individual, to change the course of their life, to give them hope, to give them something passionate to live for. There is no better medicine than giving hope to others. There's no better medicine than expanding one's consciousness to have an ability to love more. There's no better medicine than courageous love. And I'm so grateful that I got to sit here one more time for one more hour, 55 minutes, and share with you all. Thank you for stopping by, for listening. Wow, it's been a beautiful ride to share with you, knowing that I wanted to share this last journey and also a few of the other pieces of my puzzle along the way. It's January 16th, 2020. I have titled the show January 13th because that's when I started to set up to do it and then had issues with my computer. So it's going out January 2022. Did I just say 2020? January 2022. It's just over a year since I started my podcast, and it feels really good. I started it in December 2020, so I'm proud of myself. This is the 13th episode, and there will be more to come. I hope that you will continue to join me, to listen in, tune up yourself, tap into the source of whatever it is that you believe, however it is that you practice it. There is no right way. There is only your way. And you can share that way. You can experience that way with others. If you want to share it, perfect. Whatever it is and however it is that you need to find the best version of you and the support that you need to find it, whether it's through plant medicine or spiritual practices or meditation, whatever it is, do what you do best. Do you. Thank you again for tuning in today. Lara Helena here, courageous Lara, with courageous love now. Over and out.
Hello, all you beautiful listeners. It is that time for a little shameless self-promotion. If you've enjoyed this podcast or any of the previous podcasts I have recorded, I would be so grateful if you could subscribe and rate and possibly review down below. So whatever your podcast listening app is, there is usually an area where you can leave a review of what you thought. Even just a few words can make a huge difference. And as I am new to podcasting, it will make even a bigger difference to just get the word out there and also see what you thought. Thanks so much for your support and keep on listening.